We are back on Morning Line. Our guest with us this morning is John Weil, political science professor over at MTSU. Taking your calls if you want to join us, 737-7587. If you've heard about the new controversial book about to come out about Fire and Fury is what it's called, Donald Trump and his administration and early on and some of the issues, Steve Bannon involved, some, you know, do you believe it, do you not? And again, the tweets we were talking about with North Korea, if that's okay with you, if it bothers you. We've got some more calls here and the line's open if you want to jump in. We'll go to Grady. Hey, Grady.
Good morning, Nick and Learning Professor John there. I want to say that, you know, we've got two crises at work here. You know, my button's bigger than your button. You know, they don't realize they can destroy half the world with their buttons. You know, either one of them. And, you know, think about it. North Korea is actually talking to South Korea. Okay. And, you know, you can't have a pre-exemptive nuclear strike without going through Congress. You can retaliate if one is fired at you, but it's got to have congressional approval if we're going to do a preemptive strike. And, you know, I mean, the book is talking about on the airplane when they were trying to come up with a reasonable meeting at the Trump Towers, that the president was dictating the letter that was going to explain it, which would be obstruction of justice. We've got a Congress that's not going to impeach the president, and not until we get some Democrats in there. Now, I ain't going to listen to y'all's comments this morning.
All right. Thank you, Grady. I appreciate it. I mean, articles of impeachment have been introduced by, among others, Memphis Congressman Steve Cohen and others. But I agree with Grady. That's, you know, they get introduced. Premature. It's just not going to happen to move forward one way or the other, at least at this point. Right. Now, I did see yesterday, you know, Vice President Pence swore in two new Democratic senators, which
he did,
his
and
role
of course, one is simply a replacement for a previous Democrat, for Franken.
It's going to be, yeah, exactly, and then
and the other is
from Alabama. Yeah. And so, you know, that happening, it's going to be interesting as we get up to the this upcoming election, though, right? I mean,
I think it could be more it could. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's 51-49 right now.
Tennessee could make a change there.
Well, we could. I mean, Bredesen is, you know, is probably as strong a Democratic candidate as we've had for that office in some time.
And Blackburn,
probably,
right? And
well, certainly. I mean, I think the Democratic side's pretty well set. Yeah. The Republican, not necessarily at this point.
We'll see. You know, also with regard to those tweets, I'm just wondering too the practicality of, you know, the State Department and the Pentagon dealing with it. When the president sends out a tweet like that on the nuclear button, what do you think the reaction is in the halls there, with his Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, when he's the one that has to negotiate, and then the president sent it? I mean, just does that is it a factor, or is it just don't listen to that?
The two of them seem to be at loggerheads, and I mean the general consensus seems to be, although it's been that way for several months, that Tillerson isn't going to last. You know, they said the same about Sessions, and he's still there. The one caution I would give people about North Korea communicating with South Korea, I mean, on the surface that seems like a good thing, but as someone who just watched their finest hour that talks about Churchill and you know all these efforts, I mean, I see this primarily as an effort by North Korea to put distance between South Korea and the United States, more than a genuine effort. I mean, you know, here's a person, you know, the last person he sent back to us, you know, died a week or two after he got back of injuries that he had suffered, and so I find it hard to think, you know, very good thoughts about anything that Ung does, other than there to preserve his own dynasty and his own power.
Gotcha. Let's go to Jack. Hi, Jack.
Yeah. Good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning.
During the Cold War, I served on a nuclear missile launch crew when I was young in Germany.
Wow.
And went to the Berlin Wall and saw Soviet tanks roll up. So my perspective is a little bit different than some of the chicken hawks that are out there waving their arms furiously. The president's speech at the UN, when he basically threatened to obliterate North Korea, his tweets, we're dealing, in my opinion, with an unstable personality. And I'm not a Democrat. I don't like Democrats, and I can't stand Republicans. But when I see the kind of behavior that's going on, where there is no foreign policy that is stable from minute to minute in this administration, it's very concerning, to say the least. And if you look back historically, you can understand North Korea's behavior. We falsely invaded Iraq when they had no weapons of mass destruction, and we knew they didn't have any weapons of mass destruction. When Libya voluntarily gave up their weapons of mass destruction, we still thought, oh, why not? We'll overthrow their government, which is now in chaos, and there are little Al-Qaeda-like and various other crazy ISIS-type organizations, literally tens of them, running around Libya. So our foreign policy track record is pathetic, to say the least. The president is also savaging Iran as the leader of terrorism in the world. Wrong answer, Mr. President. The epicenter of terrorism, jihadism specifically, is Saudi Arabia. And if he doesn't understand the difference between Sunni and Shia, shame on him. But it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you. So what is the solution? Where are we going? What's the end game? That's what everything you say there I agree with, Jack. I mean,
Well, I think we have to start out by having an honest discussion in this country, as opposed to Fox News giving us one line of crap and MSNBC giving us another. We actually have to have a real-world, honest conversation about our historic bad behavior. And we have to have responsible people in the Senate, for example, on both sides of the aisle. And the Republicans have pretty much laid down on the mat in both houses of Congress, because they just want to get their things done, and they don't seem to have any willingness to stand up to the insanity coming out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So we have a rogue government, in my opinion. There's no one at the helm. I mean, obviously, if you look at Trump, I have never seen a more mercurial actor in my life sitting in the White House, who doesn't seem to know anything or be curious to know about anything. And you can never tell whether this is just a charade. In other words, he's just playing a game because he's, smart like a fox, or whether he is literally unstable. And I don't know the answer to that. I would hope, certainly, that he has some kind of plan. But, the longer you observe what's going on down there, the less likely you are to believe that, in fact, is the case.
Great call. Interesting. I'm with him. And, it's
I think the one sort of caveat I would make is we seem to, at this point, we seem to have had greater recklessness in terms of rhetoric than we've had in terms of action when it comes to foreign affairs. And I'm not saying that either recklessness is good, but sometimes I just wonder if Trump isn't, he's throwing out some red meat to what he considers to be his most loyal supporters, put down Vietnam, say something nasty about Pakistan, go after Iran, whatever, without really, and this is maybe a good thing, without really acting on it.
Yeah.
He's substituting words for actions.
You know what? And if you try to get into the psychology of it, I'm with you. And if what these tweets are is a steam stress release for him, and it goes out, it is still just a tweet. Hopefully, the people who are the recipients of it don't overboard, when they get it. But if that's what it is, because you're right, it's a tweet. It's not so much an action tangibly on the ground or with weapons. And if that works for the president, then you know what? Maybe that's the way it's got to be. Listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, more of your calls. Brian, Joe, and others. The line's open, 737-7587. What do you think about the tweets, where we stand right now in D.C., and some of the revelations, true or not, coming out of the new book, Fire and Fury? We'll be right back.